President Trump wants you to know that your governor is to blame and for these protests that are sweeping the nation because they're just too weak. They need to get strong. In fact, in a recent call to governors, he talked about how weak their leadership has been and said, oh, no, if you want to actually win, you got to dominate the protesters. Take a listen.
What happened in the state of Minnesota, they were electric stock all over the world. They took over the police department. The police were running down the street, sirens blazing, the rest of them running. It was on camera. And then they wiped out. You probably have to build a new one, but I've never seen anything like it. And the whole world was laughing. 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor is, I think, on the quality. He's an excellent guy. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard in big numbers. They did it first, and they did. And I'll tell you that, I don't know what it was. Governor, it was the third night. What night? Those guys walked through that stuff like it was butter. They walked right through, and you haven't had any problems since. I mean, they don't. They're not going to go there now. They'll go to some other place. But once you called out and you dominated, you took the worst place, and you made it. They didn't even cover it last night because there was so little action. Because you dominated. You dominated. Now, what happened to New York, I have to tell you, I live in Manhattan. What's going on in Manhattan, I have no idea. New York's finest, they got to be allowed maybe to do their job. I don't know what's happening in Manhattan, but it's terrible. And because it's New York, because it's Manhattan, it gets a lot of press. So they really spend a lot of time on it. But New York has got to have to toughen up. And we'll send you National Guard if you want. You have the largest police force in the country, 40,000 people, I understand. But what's going on in New York is terrible. It's terrible. Of all the places. What went on last night in Los Angeles with the stores and the storefronts is terrible. No domination. You have to dominate.
Total domination. You have to dominate. Toughen up, New York, he says from inside of his bunker. Bunker boy. All right, so that's part of the call. The rest of this call went on for quite a bit longer, with unfortunately some of the governors like taking his framing. Oh yeah, we got to be tough. Yeah, we got to dominate. Except for J.B. Pritzker. So that's Illinois, and he's like, no, that's not what we should be doing. In fact, we kind of need the leadership from the president of the United States. To which, of course, Trump had replied, "The loser said, baby." That's actually not what he said, but nonetheless, other things that were said during the call was he says, if you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to dominate. What? More. It's a movement. If you don't put it down, it will get worse and worse. Again, this is Black Lives Matter, right? This is the movement. Trump says you got to put it down. You got to put it down. You got to kill it, right? You got to end it. You got to dominate it, right? And he said the only time it's successful is when you're weak, and most of you are weak. You've got to arrest people. You have to track people. You have to put them in jail for 10 years, and you'll never see this stuff again. I don't know if he's talking about actual protesters, or more likely he's got to be talking about the people who are doing crime, right? People who are, rioting and looting stores and setting fires, things like that, right? But I don't know. I don't know who he's talking about. And I'll be honest about that. And by the way, you gotta track people, right? This is the one time that Donald Trump actually might be in favor of contact tracing. Remember the whole thing, like where for, coronavirus, COVID-19, where you track people that have the virus to make sure, to see who they've been in contact with so that they can get notified to get tested for COVID-19, all that stuff. Donald Trump wasn't in favor of that. No, he didn't like contact tracing. But if it has to do with, protesters, well, then, of course, we will contact trace you all freaking day, all day long. And so now he also blames, of course, quote unquote, the radical left. Uh, I mean, it's amazing, right? According to CBS News, you know it. Everybody knows it, but it's also looters. And it's also people that figure they can get free stuff by running into stores and running out with television sets. Talking about the looters. Uh, I saw it. A kid has a lot of stuff. He puts it in the back of a brand new car and drives off. That never happened. I can guarantee he did not see that. That probably maybe it happened, but I doubt that he saw something just like that. Come on, dude, really? All right. And he says, you have every one of these guys on tape. Why aren't you prosecuting them? You actually have to have the lot of work. I'm just saying, right? Uh, Now he also says the harder you are, the tougher you are, the less likely you're going to be hit. That's actually not true. The harder you go, without solving the underlying issues of police brutality, the more this is going to happen. The more you're going to have protests, and that's the thing. That's the thing that he doesn't understand. The tougher you get, quote unquote, the worse it's going to get. The more people are going to go out on the streets. I mean, what are you going to do? When you start shooting people? You start killing people? Protesters? That's going to be a gigantic mess. An absolute mess. But here's where he gives it away. He says, it is a war in a certain sense, and we're going to end it fast. That should scare you. Look, he already wants the military involved, right? And so do a lot of Republicans. In fact, later on, I'm going to show you Tom Cotton wanting the 101st Airborne to come down and start shooting people. No quarter, he says. War crime, right? He's a proto-fascist. He's an authoritarian. And then, of course, he goes in and he says, well, no, the problem is anarchists and Antifa, right? Those are the people. And so that it's important to mention that because there's a narrative out there, right, of outside agitators, people that are not part of the communities that are coming in and doing some of the rioting and looting. I'm sure that there are some anarchists that are, causing, doing a little bit of damage. But let's be honest. Most of the anger in these communities is from people in the communities. That includes even some of the fires and some of the rioting, right? They are people that from the community. And why it's important to point that out is because, if you say that it's all outside agitators, then you take away agency from the movement and you make it easier to crack down, to crush them. Because, they're not part of the community, so they're destroying it anyway. It's not, it has nothing to do with people in the community that are actually angry about the police in the community. No, it's all these outside agitators. So let's go after China. Or let's go after somebody else, right? Those are the people. And of course, what is it? The Democrats, I believe, are like, Russia. It's the Russians. No, the Russians didn't create this issue. Russians didn't create this, problem with policing. It has been here literally for centuries, right? For a very long time, we've had racial problems in this country. And so it's an issue, right? Calling everybody anarchists and outside agitators, it's a way to basically ignore the calls to end police brutality. Now, Trump also said that he would designate Antifa, which is not a hierarchical organization. It's not really an organization at all. It's basically anybody who calls himself an anti-fascist, which I would hope would be most of us, right? Now, there's like Black Bloc that is more likely to basically go up and punch a Nazi, right? So you've got those people. He's saying, oh, no, there should be considered a domestic terror group. Except that there's no legal way he can actually do that. That's according to experts. It's like, yeah, you can't just go and do that. That's no. And besides, how could he, right? How many people have died due to Antifa? Nobody. As opposed to right-wing authoritarian groups, neo-Nazis, anti-government groups, they have actually killed the most Americans in domestic terrorist attacks. More than Muslims, more than anyone else. You've had these right-wing, anti-authority, anti-government groups that have gone around killing a lot of people. But we don't designate them as terror groups, do we? No, it's because they're right and they're white and they're right wing. They're basically his base. So now, a little bit of substance out of the way now, right? Let me note the irony of saying, dude, you got to be tough. Dude, you can't be weak. You're so weak to the governors while hiding in a literal bunker. Not only that, but he turned off the White House lights as if it's Halloween, and of course he was out of candy or he doesn't want to give out candy. Go somebody else. Dude, go somewhere else. I'm gonna release the hounds. Bug somebody else. Weak, sad, pathetic, bunker bitch. Why don't you actually leave the governance to other people, actual leaders, and go hide out the rest of your term, pathetic wannabe strongman. Sad. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.